Boelter Jones, Pro Football Hall of Famer, top 100.
Tyler Lockett from the Seattle Seahawks.
DK Metcalf from
Nate Rawson. You're watching NorbCam.
NorbCam. You're watching NorbCam.
What's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you here on this, what is it, Thursday? The Thursday after. Every day is going to be the day after that horrible loss Seattle had against the Los Angeles Rams. It's been a week of decompressing, a week of coming to grips with the sudden end of the season. And I've had a chance. It's actually been very therapeutic for myself. I got to sit down with Coach Maraj on the coach's corner to break down some plays and really see what was going on, things that I didn't see on the during the broadcast that came to light, some things that made me think, okay, well, I see some things that definitely we have things to work on. And then yesterday on the round table, we talked quite a bit about the game. Boy, we got on DK Metcalf for quite a bit there. Love the guy, but he's got ways to go before he can start calling himself the next Jerry Rice. So we've definitely are looking ahead to what next year is going to bring. And we talked a little bit about the assistant coach, the OC firing, and the search for the new one, who possible candidates might be. And there's so much more to talk about. We've got free agents to re-sign. We've got, the draft needs to address. We've got potential free agents to bring in from other teams, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into it. Really, this show is for you guys. This is the chance to hear from all of you. I know that I'm sure a lot of you guys have some thoughts. I've seen your chats, but this is your chance to not only call in, but your chance to actually be on camera. So if you want to be on camera and join this fan panel today, you got to go to the Zoom. The Zoom is actually in the Discord. So if you go to the Discord and look up the YouTube channel, you'll see the Zoom link. And I know a bunch of you are already standing by already. So let's get into it. But first, I must acknowledge my sponsor, my dear friend here, Daniel Dovin. Daniel's actually here with me to get things started. And there he is, Daniel Dovin. Last time we talked, man, it's good to see you, by the way. Thanks for being on here.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
So, last time we did a little meet the fan thing. I did a little talk with you. We talked a little bit about Seattle, the history, our experience with the team, how we came to love the team. And I know you talked about your grandfather and your experience and being at that 49er championship game. We weren't supposed to have this conversation today. This is supposed to be talking about the next game and how we were going to get past the divisional hump. And yet here we are talking exit, end of season. I just want to get your take. What was your feeling? And I guess Daniel Dovin of Dovin Real Estate, appreciate you staying on as my sponsor, working together in this partnership to the end of the season. What was your feeling at, having watched that game, man? It was an ugly game, but what was your kind of, as you watched it happen and unfold in front of your eyes, what did you think about it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to partner up with you through the rest of the season and hopefully beyond. It's really great that you keep adding value to your community and our Seahawks community. So thanks, Norb.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So as far as the game, that ruined my Saturday. Honestly, it ruined my whole weekend. I was not expecting that at all. As you know, we had our conversation the night before, and I was extremely confident. And, as the Bible says, pride goes before the fall. And I was definitely prideful about our team. I don't regret being confident, but I will say that game was the perfect way to beat us, is the perfect way for us to beat ourselves. I mentioned in that broadcast on that Friday night with you that the only way the Rams would win is if they take the ball away from us. And they happened to do that twice. As everyone knows, it's very well documented that if you lose the turnover battle, your chances of winning go down significantly.
I've been saying that all season.
Rule number one. Yep.
It has been
Rule
that
number
case.
one for Pete Carroll's always protect the team, right? But as far as football is concerned, the number one rule is to protect the ball. We failed to do that. So that's the main gist of it. I think we could break down a lot of other things, but that's in a nutshell why I think we lost.
Yeah, and there was a lot of other things there. If you watch any of these other shows that we did this week with Coach Marsh breaking down Coach's Corner, a lot of things, the puzzling things, because Russell Wilson was definitely had wide open receivers down the field that he didn't throw to. And the question can be asked, and we'll never know the answer, did Russell force the ball to DK because of the things that was going on the sideline, or did he just not see it, or was he just not confident, or was it because he's so scared about getting sacked that he doesn't feel like he can just look down and make that throw to the receivers that are there, but he's just missing something. So obviously they fired their OC, and that's kind of where we ended up now, where the search is on. The search is on for the OC. Whether we like the change or not, whether we felt it was deserved or not, the change is happening. So now the big question is, who is that guy going to be? So we're going to definitely be discussing that, and we'll find out soon enough. A lot of coaches already interviewing for jobs. No news yet as far as the Seahawks getting a new OC. But what do you think about that? Do you feel like it was time for a change at OC?
I honestly did not. I didn't think that the way the season went, the last 3 seasons with Schottenheimer, I didn't think that was justified to let him go. If you really think on a macro level, winning the division 12-4, having a very prolific offense, yes, we didn't make good adjustments in the second half of the season. Yes, we didn't use Carson the best way he could have been used, especially in a contract year. Surprise, surprise, how it ended up going. But I think the wording of it's really fascinating. Some coaches, when they get fired, the team says, we fired them, and it gets reported as firing. This one, the Seahawks went out of their way to say, hey, Brian Schottenheimer's a really great guy. We really appreciate him the last 3 years. We're parting ways. So it makes me think maybe he has another opportunity somewhere else. So I think the Seahawks overall are a very classy organization. So I don't think that it was a really I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at one of the comments. Jose, yes, I can give you a cheap mansion, and Sky High Aviation, yes, I can give you a free house. Because you said please. So,
wow, I'll say please too.
So I would say I was very surprised at the move. But yeah, like I said, maybe he has another opportunity somewhere else. Maybe he doesn't. There's a lot of things to be fleshed out over this offseason. But Norb, when you were talking about your kind of analysis and your questions, all I could think of was yes. Everything you said, yes. Like, was it partly because Russell had issues with the offensive line and started freaking out his footwork and his eye work? Yes. Was he trying to force it to DK? Yes. Could we not run the ball? Yes. It was all the things, all at the worst possible time, in a time where you should be peaking, playing championship football. We laid an egg, and we made it look nicer than it was. We were polishing a turd, got it to 30-20, when really that was a spanking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. It's just, what could have been, and it was so promising at 12-4. I really thought this was the remake of 2014 when we went 12-4 and ended up going all the way. And just, you kind of felt like it's like you kept hoping, like, I think we'll get it going, but the offense was just clunking along and just never clicked, and that game just became the whole vomit of how bad our offense had become. It's just so crazy how it was the tale of 2 seasons. Horrible defense to start, great offense, suddenly really good defense, although we had some issues on that game, and then horrible, one of the worst offensive performances we've ever seen. So
let me ask you, Norb, real quick, what do you think about Schottenheimer? Do you think that it was justified, or do you think
at first surprising? I thought I didn't think it was all his to blame, and then the more I kept thinking about, man, we needed to make an adjustment. Why are we not adjusting? And we'll never know if it's Pete or him, but the reality is, if you have to look at all the pieces in place, Schneider with the extension, Pete Carroll with the extension, Russell Wilson's not going anywhere. Who's the odd man out? If you're going to have to look at the architects, there's one guy in there who's probably the least. If someone has to take the fall, he was going to have to be the one, because Pete's not going to go anywhere. And like I said, Schneider's not going anywhere. Russell's not going anywhere. So I think it kind of just, somebody had to go, and it had to be him, unless they just had him stay. But it's very possible Schottenheimer thought, maybe I don't want to stay. Maybe hearing Russell say, or Pete saying, I want to go back to running the ball and this, and maybe that was the whole thing, that they clashed on that whole point. And he's like, well, you know what? That's not really my style. I'm going to move on. So maybe it was a mutual thing. Maybe they just fire him. Maybe they both thought this isn't a good match. So maybe in the end, this was the best thing for the team. All right, let's start bringing some other people in here. And I'm just going to we don't have any real planned format to this. I just see people waiting in the waiting room. I just start bringing you guys in one at a time, and we'll kind of just have a little bit of conversation, see how big this party becomes. So right now we've got Nick LeBeau. Nick, are you there? Nick's joined into the call right now. Nick LeBeau, one of the regular members of this show, and
I should be. Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
What's
I don't
up,
see
Nick?
you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
What's up? Awesome.
There you are. There he
bud.
is.
Oh, sweet background.
Yeah,
That's a sweet setup, man.
A nice OBS studio overlays there as well. Anyway, so Nick, welcome back. It's good to talk to you. And
Good talking to you too.
you know, I know you've been watching and listening to a lot of the conversation this week. You're one of our most intelligent viewers, I think, and despite your age, you know quite a bit about football. What's your take on all this? You know, do you feel like, I guess while we're on the topic of the offensive coordinator, whose fault primarily is it to blame for the Seahawks' offensive woes? Do you feel like the offensive coordinator firing was the right move?
Well, I feel it was the right move. You know, Shoddy had 3 years to kind of get into this offense, get the offense he wanted involved. And at the beginning of the season, it was looking great. Everything was going perfectly. But then there was like at the midseason mark, kind of around that Arizona down there game and the Rams game down there, kind of in that chunk of time is when it all just went bad. I felt like it was the right move to fire him and move on and go back to what we did best when we won the Super Bowl, which was winning with our defense and the run game. Shoddy, obviously, I agree with you in that I think it was a more mutual agreement where Shoddy wanted to pass more, Pete wanted to run more, and I do think it was the right move for our team.
You know what's funny about that? What's really funny is, you know, before the season started, do you remember the Let Russ Cook, hashtag Let Russ Cook, that was a blurb that was floating around already before the season even started, right? So there was already this feeling like we need to catch up with the modern offenses now. Everybody's throwing the ball, and we need to catch up with all that because this is an offensive-driven league. It's all about passing now, and the rules all favor the passing game, and so we did that, and I think everybody was thrilled. Everybody was happy, you know, and then it was just like, man, if we just had a defense to go with this. And it's so funny now that we flipped it entirely, and now we're okay with Pete Carroll saying, I want to go back to running the ball now. Mm-hmm. Almost a complete, I won't say regression, but reverting back to what, you know, has worked. But then people are, well, then why are you paying, if you're going to run the ball, why are you paying a quarterback $35+ million a year and Russell Wilson to just be a game manager again? You know, what's your thoughts on that? How would you answer critics who would say, what the heck are you doing? This is an ancient dinosaur Jurassic philosophy that Pete Carroll's doing. Pete Carroll needs to go. What do you say about that?
Well, I'd say look at the past. Look at the past few years with Pete Carroll. We've had all of our success mainly as a franchise. We won our Super Bowl. We got to another Super Bowl. We're so close to winning another one. We've gotten to the playoffs for 8 times in the last 10 years. Pete Carroll, I don't believe is a problem. And yeah, I think Pete Carroll is just a phenomenal head coach. He's won us our games, and that's basically my stand on it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Nick. I think that we would really regret letting go of Pete in any sort of way. And the organization made that really clear by extending Pete and John. And going into the playoffs, I think that the timing was not on accident. It was to just have leadership say, you know, or ownership, I should say, hey, these are our leaders moving forward. We know that players are going to change. We don't care kind of what happens in these playoffs. We're here. We're division champs. Let's go get this thing. So I think in any good organization, it's all about culture. And Pete Carroll has been a master of culture wherever he goes. And so, you know, I've seen us really struggle throughout the 90s and then in the mid 2000s really get going. And then, you know, in the Pete Carroll era, it's been all winning for the most part. So I think another note that a lot of people don't see is when they look at highlights, say of the Chiefs or the Packers, they only see these big splash plays of Tyreek Hill streaking down, you know, on having a huge play, or Devontae Adams having a huge play, or even, you know, Travis Kelce down the middle or something like that. But what you don't see is they're really, really good in the trenches. They actually run the ball extremely, extremely well, and they control the clock, and they also have explosive offenses that are based off of play action. And you can't have good play action if, number one, you don't have a good offensive line. Number two, if you can't run the ball, partly because of that offensive line. And so I think that this year's a really good opportunity. Pete Carroll did talk about getting better at left guard, specifically because we've been, kind of having Iupati come in and out. We've had Jordan Simmons. And if you really look at the tape of the Rams game specifically, it all came to a head. Brandon Shell's not 100% healthy. Dwayne Brown had a fine game. Our rookie from LSU, Damian Lewis, played amazing all year, but he had a couple plays where he's matched up one-on-one with a Hall of Famer. I think Damian Lewis has a chance to be an All-Pro, but that's still a lot to ask of a young man, right? Ethan Posick had one of his worst games, had some penalties, had some issues. We had that false start at a terrible time. Partly that's on him and Russell and Pete, right? And then Jordan Simmons honestly got blown up the entire game. So I would say that, people are scared of the run first offense, but you won't be upset when we start winning a lot of games, and our passing game is that much stronger because we can run. Pete Carroll's been alive a lot longer than a lot of us, and he's seen a lot more football than us. And I think that we need to continue to trust that he knows what the heck he's doing, because he does. Yeah.
100% agree.
Hey, real quick, Daniel, so your mic, I think, is like rattling against your zipper there. So it's just making a lot of clicking sounds. So just watch that real quick so we don't have that repeating, because you're making some great points. Just don't want to be overshadowed
Is that better, brother?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Thank you. So NINJA-CRK in the Super Chat says, "Hey, Norb, do you want me to join the Zoom call since I am an MVP?" Yes, absolutely. The way to do it, because I don't want to put the Zoom out there. I've done that before, and we've seen what happens. So the Zoom is actually in the Discord. You just have to go to the YouTube announcements page, and you can get the Zoom from there. And but by all means, this is open to anybody who gets into the Discord and joins in. So, in fact, let's bring on another one here. Let's bring on Sky High Aviation. Sky High Aviation. Jose, welcome to the show, man. Haven't seen you in a while, brother. How you doing?
What's up,
I'm
Jose?
doing good, Norb. Can you guys hear me good?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can hear you
great.
fine. Man. So, this is, like I said, this is kind of your guys' show. People have asked me, can we do more fan panels? Well, this is the fan panel time. I want to give you guys a chance on my platform to air your thoughts on what you think the Seahawks need to do, what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, and things like that. So, what's your take, Jose? What do you feel is the biggest issue with the team right now?
Well, I really think the biggest issue with the team right now is coming from that offensive side of the offense direction right now. We're coming off Schottenheimer let go, or fired or whatever would happen. And really, my take on what happened with Schottenheimer, I think he was a good offensive coordinator. When I saw him, we got hired, I heard that he was wanting to do a lot of play action, a lot of vertical running, a lot of zone running game. That's perfect. That's perfect to maximize Russell Wilson's abilities. And 2 years into it, halfway through this season, I'm thinking, this guy's going to be here for a while. This guy's leading Russell Wilson to an MVP. All of a sudden, offense goes spiraling down. And I start seeing more of the same Seahawks, more of the Seahawks offense that we saw in 2014, but not as good as just running the ball. The Russell Wilson was having problems throwing the ball. He was getting sacked everywhere. The receivers weren't coming up making plays. So really, I think it was a amount of frustration because, for something to come to a head this quickly for Brian Schottenheimer to all of a sudden be gone a day, even like less than 24 hours almost after Pete Carroll states that he wants to run the ball more, tells me that something really internally is happening with the Seahawks coaching staff, something that maybe they didn't agree on, something that, hey, I want to do this, no, you don't want to do that. And I really think that Pete thinks that maybe running the ball will help Russell Wilson become more efficient, while Brian Schottenheimer thinks throwing the ball and let Russ cook every single game will maximize his potential. And what do you know? We may if Brian Schottenheimer was really all the stuff that he was back for the last 3 years, besides this past half season, Russell Wilson, and we may be paying the price for it if Pete Carroll wants to run the ball 30 times per game. Or, how do I say this? When Russell Wilson may not feel like, hey, I'm really thinking that Russell Wilson may, even if we struggle this year throwing the ball and Russell Wilson doesn't feel like he's getting his maxed out potential, no matter how good of a relationship with Pete Carroll he has, it could possibly sour, I think, if Russell Wilson isn't used properly, or if Russell Wilson doesn't get the max, or if Pete Carroll isn't able to find a way to actually get Russell, the reps that he needed to get him throwing the ball downfield, doing what he does best. So that being said, if we do switch to a more heavier run-based offense, as much as I like Chris Carson, as much as I like him as the power running back, I don't know that he's going to come back this year. Mentioned yesterday, there's a lot of good running backs in this draft. Trey Sermon is one of the guys that they mentioned from Ohio State. I've been watching him all season. I've been watching the 7 games that Ohio State played. Trey Sermon he's that running back. He's that thin speed guy. He's that guy who's small and thin, and he's not huge, but he can run up the middle, and he's not afraid to go after the defense. So, and backing him up, we can get DJ Dallas back. We can get Travis Homer, who's a good receiving back. We can get Penny too, because I like what I see out of Penny too. He's a big third down back. And, if we can make it work, Russell Wilson can be happy. If it doesn't work, Russell Wilson may not be happy, and we'll have more problems from there.
One thing I'm really is concerning is that, it's been, 6 years since we've been to a Super Bowl. And I think we all thought it'll happen next year. And then the year goes by, we didn't make it. Division champion, that's okay, we'll get it next year. And then you just find yourself saying, well, we'll get him next year. How many we'll get him next year are we going to keep saying? Russell Wilson's, he's 32, and, he's closer to 40 now than he was to 20 at this stage of his life, right? And so, yeah, he's got plenty of football still under his belt, but it's starting that feeling of where, man, that window of that Super Bowl that we had, obviously we missed it when we had the chance to go back to back, but now it's that feeling like, man, if we don't get it soon, this, at least with the era with Russell Wilson here, he's going to be up for another contract renewal situation in about a couple more years. Is it going to be, where will we be at that situation? Because I've always thought Russell's going to be a Seahawk for life. We would have won a couple, 2, 3 championships by the time it's all said and done. And now it's just concerning that it feels like we're starting all over, not completely, but in a lot of ways, the fact that we're having to, get a new offensive coordinator, it's going to be a whole new playbook. It's going to be, and we're losing certain guys. Inevitably, it always happens. And so that's always that concern.
I really think that Seattle and all the Seahawks fans, we kind of think that Russell Wilson's, I know it was mentioned yesterday, we think he's the immortal person. He's the immortal guy. He'll last forever. Well, nothing lasts forever. Russell Wilson's not Hulk Hogan. So, not that I know of. But, he is getting older, and I've read a lot of things online. I've seen a lot of things from a lot of people that know their way around football, thinking Russell Wilson's going to begin declining a bit steadily. He's gotten that rise right now. Last year he was at that peak, and now this year we saw a bit with the turnovers. Maybe he's at that peak at where he's going to start declining, and maybe we need to start thinking about what's going to happen once Russell Wilson starts playing. What if Russell Wilson, because that guy, we never know. If Russell Wilson starts playing a bit poorly, what's going to happen? Because
he already has. It could be argued maybe he has already started playing poorly. And maybe. Which doesn't mean he can't get back on track, but that's the thing is nothing's ever guaranteed. And like you said, I think Russell Wilson's been sort of that untouchable. Nobody ever criticizes him. Oh no, Russell Wilson's great. What do you say? Blue and green till I die. You don't say anything bad about my quarterback, but we got to be realistic sometimes here. So I got another guest in here in the show, Summer Moore. Welcome to the fan panel. Thanks for joining us here. I'm not sure if you've been listening to all the conversations, but again, this is an opportunity for all you guys to make this your show and just give your thoughts on what you think, the frustrations, what you think Seahawks need to do. What's your take on this team, on this debate here? Weigh in. We'd love to know what you think.
Honestly, I think that Russell Wilson could have thrown the ball to more people during the season instead of, because he mostly just threw it to DK and Lockett. like all season. And there's a few times he threw it to Moore, but honestly, I think he should have thrown the ball to more people. And there was probably more people on the field that were wide open and didn't throw them to him.
And that's a very good point. I think there were times in some of the games where he was the most successful. It was during those parts were those games where he had like 8 or 9 different receivers catching, fair amounts of yardage, but had all these different weapons. And so those are the games that, he didn't have a ton of yards, but it was a lot of people getting a lot of catches. And then the defense just had to spread out and cover. You don't know what direction people were coming from. And so I think that points back to that whole issue with the DK thing. My big concern is that DK Metcalf, unless they get him under control to where he's not going to be blowing up on the sideline every time he doesn't get, the ball, that's going to be a problem. And I hate it because he's so talented, yet he could be such a big distraction, and he's not there yet. He should not be a distraction, right, at this point. So anybody, you guys can just kind of weigh in, just jump in, and we'll just kind of do this sort of roundtable. I haven't heard from Nick or
I can tell,
Daniel.
I can tell, Norb, that you're influenced by the conversation with Bill last night, talking about kind of diva wide receivers and things like that. I mean, there is an element that's true. I think, Summer, that's a really good point. When we're at our best, we're definitely distributing the ball across the board. And something that I lamented to Norb the other day was the fact that this year I expected a lot more out of our tight ends. Greg Olsen didn't really have a great year. It's I think $7 million down the drain. Obviously he was injured for a time. Hollister was pushed back in the totem pole, and then you have Disley, who I thought was fully healthy, but production wise, clearly there's something wrong. So when we have all these receivers and tight ends spreading out, the defense isn't going to respect certain players unless you actually make them pay. If occasionally you give Freddie Swain a little slant pass, or you have one of your running backs do a Texas route and actually catching a short pass, until we actually make people pay, they're only going to pay attention to DK and Tyler. But again, all of this, y'all, is predicated on the fact that you need a good offensive line, and we didn't do a good enough job of helping our offensive line, whether that was picking up more players or having more chip blocks by our running backs, or having our tight ends come and help, or having Nick Bellore come in as a fullback to help out. There wasn't enough of that, and I think that's why Shoddy's gone. I think because he didn't make the adjustments. Like Bill Marsh said yesterday, we're running like 10 and 15-yard plays to DK and Tyler when we need 6 yards. So that's what was frustrating, is we didn't diversify second half of the season especially. And again, I think it does go back to the offensive line.
Yeah, can't argue. The offensive line, the game, it is in the trenches that games are won and lost. And we did improve the defensive line, and I think that's a big part of why the defense played better, because when you do get better performance out of the D-line, and they started getting sacks, they started getting those pressures, and it makes it easier for everybody else behind them. And I think it kind of worked in reverse on the offensive side. We started having some injuries up front. I think teams started to figure us out. They started pressuring more, and then that created that situation where all of a sudden Wilson's getting sacked, he's turning the ball over, he's fumbling, and what boggles my mind is how they were not able to come back from that. And we've got Nick from Germany here. Welcome from across the globe. Nick from Germany. Thanks for being on here. Let's get your thoughts on the state of the Seahawks. Are you able to keep up with all the Seahawks action all the way over in Germany? What's going on over there, Nick? Nick, can you hear me? Nick I can see you, but we can't hear you. So it's all right. We can't hear you, Nick. So work on that audio. I'm not sure if your audio is just not hooked up there, but let's try to bring another. Let's just keep adding to the party here, and let's bring in Basunjara.
Can you hear me?
Oh wait, there you are. There he is now. Okay, all right, Nick, you got the floor. Yeah, I wanted to just get your thoughts from somebody all the way across the world.
Yeah, this is great because like when your videos are on, I'm actually asleep all the time. Well, there's one thing I want to say. The situation the Seahawks are in is not that bad as it seems, in my opinion. You have to think about the fact that we lost the number 1 seed the last 2 years in a row. And I think this is a sign that it doesn't matter if we go run first or pass first. We are always in the position to get the number 1 seed. Last year, we had a little injury problem with running backs late in the season. And this year, it's just the loss to the Giants that prevents us from getting the bye week. And I think Carroll is a defensive guy, and I think he will go back to the run first approach. But what I don't like about the whole thing is that the Seahawks almost never get like some kind of effortless win. Of course, the win against the Jets was like a blowout. You have this like every once a year, but teams like the Packers or the Saints, it seems like they don't have any problems going all the way. And I don't know what the exact problem is for the Seahawks.
That is very true, and this is the concerning thing to me is that we've gone through multiple offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, but one thing has been the same is that the Seahawks are always, it seems like, struggling to get going, and then they have to win it at the end. Now the question is that why is that? Is it a quarterback thing? Is it a Coach Pete Carroll thing? Because it can't be just a coordinator, because we've had different coordinators under Darrell Bevell and under Schottenheimer. We've seen the same stuff. So you kind of have to wonder, maybe it's just a Pete Carroll thing, because obviously he's been the guy who's been here ever since 2010. And it feels like that's just always been the case. I mean, with a few exceptions, of course.
I think Russell Wilson is starting to force some throws. For example, I think it was against the 49ers. On third down, he rolled out and threw a great pass to David Moore, and he caught it. But he could easily pick up the first down by running like 15 yards. And in cases like that, I'm wondering, why is he taking the shot? He could easily keep the drive going, but he's not. And I think this is something the new OC has to go back with Wilson, like basically the fundamentals, keep the drives going, get the first down. And we had this like 100 times last season. In the first game against the Rams, he could maybe even run for a touchdown. No, he throws the ball in the end of in the end zone, and it's an interception. And I don't know why he's trying to force things. Maybe he really wants to get this MVP. And in my opinion, I don't really care. Leave the MVPs to Aaron Rodgers. He can have 5 of them, get 5 rings. I think that's much better. And I hope the next OC can help Wilson with some things like that. I don't have a person in mind, actually, because like keeping up with coaches who are good and who are not is actually a little bit difficult over here in Europe. And I think it's going to be okay. And in the end, I'm always thinking when I'm like in a primetime game, when a primetime game is ending, it's like 5 a.m. here in Germany, and I'm watching the game, and I'm always happy we have Russell.
Sorry to get that cut off. I'm going to bring the Zoom back in here. I think the Zoom just ran out of time here. So rejoin if you guys are there. Rejoin the Zoom. We'll continue this conversation and get some more people in there. You bring up some great points. I understand. It's amazing that you're able to keep up with the sport all the way across in Germany, and I have a hard time keeping up with all the different news, and I'm here, so I can only imagine how it's like being there with all these different, being across where football isn't the number one sport, in your country. So I appreciate your perspective. Again, keep jumping in here, folks, as I get the Zoom reestablished. I'm going to continue to bring you back in here and have your thoughts on what the state of the Seahawks is till for about another hour. So, we'll get you guys on here, and let's get a few more names who haven't jumped on yet. I'll get 3 more guests who are new here. So we're going to get Lewis. Let me get the screen up here. There's Daniel again. We're going to get Lewis, this KC Sportsnerd back in here. Let's get Nick back in here since he got just cut off last time. Let's bring Mohammed onto here, and then Basuntara as well. So there we go. We can start with the first four here. Let's start right here. So if you're not speaking, I'd appreciate if you'd mute your mics, just because sometimes there's some background noise there. But let's go to KC Sportsnerd. Wow, Lewis, I noticed you on the top right corner of the KC Sportsnerd. No glasses today. Is this a new look, or do you actually get like LASIK, or what's up, man? You look different. I didn't almost recognize you here. Oh, there it is. There's the glasses. There's the KC Sportsnerd I'm growing to love right there. There's the face. So KC Sports fan there. Lewis, you guys, I really wanted to see the Seahawks and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Obviously, my dream will not come true. What's your thoughts, man? You guys are facing this team out of the Cleveland Browns, who are just suddenly woken from their slumber of not having been in the playoffs for so many years, and here they are, just destroyed the Steelers. Are you nervous about this matchup between your team, the Chiefs, and the Browns?
Oh, I'm not. I am nervous, actually. I think that this is something I think that we need to actually. This is a team that is a 6 seed as its seeding. It does not play like a 6 seed. That's number one. I mean, you guys were talking about obviously how you want to get the run game more involved. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, those two. I mean, I think just one of the key to this game, and I think one of the ways that this game can end very quickly, is that if Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt take over the game. I think that without any of the other, turnover battle, make them one-dimensional, something like that, I think this game can really get out of hand if they just take over the game. Excuse me, that's the bottom line. So I think that even though that this is a very, very, very low-rated team, I think that it does not speak to the embodiment of this team. It just is. This team is. I mean, who forces five? Wow, excuse me, mate. What's going on out there? Who forces 5 turnovers on the Steelers? I've never seen any team this year force that many turnovers on them. That's number one. Number two, when does Big Ben throw 4 picks in a game? I do not ever remember him throwing 4 picks in a game in I don't know how long.
That way that game started, that was just a bizarre game. And they buried themselves in a hole before the game even got started. But, man, it reminded me a lot of Super Bowl 48, right? I mean, you had they were on the left side, first play of the game, ball goes over his head. And in our case, in the Super Bowl 48, we got a safety, but they get the whole touchdown. They get the whole enchilada with that play. I mean, I was laughing because, I have no love lost for Pittsburgh, man, because what they did to us in Super Bowl 40, got cheated out of a Super Bowl. So I don't feel bad for them at all. I was laughing at how much that eerily represented or mirrored what happened in Super Bowl 48. But then they went through those picks, and next thing you know, it's 28-0. I mean, Cleveland was given a gift. I mean, granted, they played well, and they had a chance that the Steelers could have come back, and Cleveland would not give up. It's like when there was 2 scores, maybe this is that. Oh, nope. They went down the field, and they scored just to make sure that wasn't going to happen. So Cleveland, they seem legit. They got the running game going. I mean, like you said, if you team that runs the ball, man, as I said in our game, the team that can run the ball, and obviously Cam Akers and the Rams ran the ball all over us. So the defense is not without fault in that game. The team that runs the ball is going to be one that's going to be primed to win the game. I think that's going to be the theme throughout the playoffs.
And one of the things that I don't think is really mentioned a lot, if you just think about that game for a second, the Browns were having COVID issues the entire week. I mean, they barely practiced, and even they didn't even have a walkthrough even before the game. Now, if you were just going to tell me that much information, I would say they maybe have a little chance of maybe just getting into the game a little, but I had no chance of them winning this game. If just from that information alone.
Well, imagine this. What if you were playing a team with a quarterback with a neck injury on, the first or second drive, and another quarterback with a broken thumb? How would you feel about that game?
Well, first of all, I think that what you need to actually think about is that obviously I think you guys were obviously preparing for Wolford more than I think. I think that he was the one, if you were looking at him, because if you knew that he was starting, what I think that you need to know is that you're going to expect him to be in the game. No one predicts injuries. That's never going to happen. But the problem is I think the issue, especially when you're playing with, I mean, that's a good point you make there. But I think that the thing that you're going to have to really see from this is that when you're playing a quarterback with, I mean, a neck and a thumb are two different injuries in the NFL. A neck, like he went to the hospital after that. Like that's how serious that neck injury was. I mean, and if you were looking at some of the throws that Goff was making, I mean, and Norb, you showed that in the coach's corner the other day. Basically, what it was that throw he made to Cooper Kupp. No way should have been caught.
It was terrible. It was flapping. It was quacking. And I think it was because of the fact it was so badly underthrown actually helped. Exactly. Jamal Adams couldn't break back on it. So if you actually threw a normal ball, I think that thing's probably picked or broken up.
And that goes back to, and this really comes back to, I think, and Squabble mentioned this earlier in the season, especially with Jamal. He excels when he blitzes at the quarterback. His pass coverage is atrocious. And I'm not speaking about that play as a whole. I'm talking about the season as a whole if you think about it. He's great at a lot of things. There's also that little hole there that is just not his strength. And I think that if you're just going to look at, I mean, obviously that's not one of the situations with this catch because honestly, in my opinion, he should have had the advantage in this catch because that was so underthrown and he probably should have picked that ball off if he just did what he was supposed to do. But I think that if you were just looking at Jamal as a whole, I mean, just the defense really as a whole in that game. They were the ones that were the saviors in that game. If not for that defense, I mean, not even close this game would have been. And I think that if you were just looking at, I mean, I've seen that Russ has off games time to time. That no quarterback is perfect. Like Mahomes also does have sometimes as well. But the thing about when DK Metcalf has that kind of attitude, I mean, I've seen many instances of this throughout the year. Either way, I don't care whose team it is. I don't want to see that from any player, no matter what. It could really, really hurt basically the mood of the sideline, the mood of the team, and also momentum can easily swing just from that. So if you were just going to point to, I think that where this game really was, I think that it really is, you can't really just blame one specific thing. You're going to have to just go to many different places and do that.
It was a lot of different things.
Yeah. I will just say that as a fan, it felt very refreshing to see someone pissed off on the sideline because we don't have a sense of urgency sometimes. And I'm not saying it's okay to blow up at your teammates. I definitely don't think that's good. I don't think it should be a habit. But at the same time, it's nice that it's not like, okay, everything's fine, y'all. We're just going to keep stalling on offense. So I guess one person could call it fire, right? Someone else could call it passion. Someone else could call them a diva. So it really depends. We have no idea exactly what he was upset about, but I liked what Coach Marsh and Norb went over last night in terms of maybe they asked him to do some blocking, and then Russell had a bad read and had DK get blown up down the middle when he had all these other guys he could have gone to. So DK had his pride hurt because he got blown up when he didn't need to, because normally he's the guy trucking people.
I'm sure it hurt.
But
I'm sure it hurt. I'm sure he was mad about that. Go ahead.
I think it wasn't DK overreacting. I think it was the rest of the team underreacting, if you can say something like that. Because I think the Seahawks are having like this cool mood they try to put on, like a poker face or something like that when things are going bad. Oh, we are going to take care of it in the fourth quarter. I think you have to start earlier to make up some things you're messing up. And I think the funny thing about the Seahawks is they played really bad, and they were like 2 plays away from winning this game. The pick 6 and DJ Reed fumbling. And DJ Reed, I personally called it like at halftime that he's going to fumble at least once on a return because he was doing like crazy things all the time. And I think even with this bad playing, you're getting close to advance in the playoffs. What are we talking about? I think, well, there are only so little things you have to correct, and this team can go all the way. And I think it's like the mindset. You don't have to approach a game like, yeah, we are the Seahawks. We won a Super Bowl. We got in 2. We're gonna make it happen. In some way, we got Russell. You can run around. This is not the way you should approach something like that. And I hope in the offseason Pete Carroll and John Schneider are going to change what they are doing in free agency, like going at the top players right away and not waiting for the second or third wave of free agents to sign them. I hope they go right and attack players right away, like getting a really good guy on the offensive line. I think we need at least 2 starters for the offensive line, not just like BJ Finney.
Maybe center.
And that's why, and I think it goes back to what ultimately was my most frustrating thing about that game was the Rams beat us because they had the run game going. Jared Goff was not going to beat them with his arm. Their defense obviously was the key to stopping us. But the problem was Seattle didn't commit fully to the run. They tried it a couple times, but I felt they didn't give it enough. I feel like in a game where if you get physical with the running game, you start to wear down and you start to change the way the other team is playing you. And if we establish the run, all of a sudden, the linebackers have to kind of come in a little bit more. They might have to bring some guys up for run support, and then everything else is open. But if you're not threatening to run, and that doesn't mean just Chris Carson. Chris Carson's a big part of that because he had, I said in my trivia contest yesterday, he finished the season with a 4.8 yards per carry average. You can't go wrong.
Did he have like a 5 sometime? Did he have like a 5 point something average sometime during the year?
But during the year, I'm sure it was over 5, and it finished at 4.8. But I mean, that's almost 5 yards a carry. You can't go wrong at 5 yards a carry, 4.8 pretty much. And so you've got to push that thing until it won't go any further. And if he had just kept getting handed off the ball and he just getting stolen every single time, well, then you go away from it. I don't think they ever stopped him. He had plenty of runs where he was getting in there, breaking through. It's like, okay, here we go, and then sack, And so I would have done that. And then the other part is Russell Wilson. Where was the Russell Wilson read option or quarterback keeper throughout this
Can I
year?
say something about that?
I don't understand why they didn't do it. Yeah, you can do that. But
so
again,
going off of that, and going off of what Nick said about this sense of urgency, right? If you watch Russell Wilson in the fourth quarter, he's in this mentality of no matter what, we're going to win, right? No matter what, we're going to get this first down because you can't afford to get off the field. But in the first half, it's almost like he's playing like, let's not turn the ball over. Let's play conservative. Let's wait until the second half, see what they're doing in the first half. That's not how Patrick Mahomes plays. That's not how Aaron Rodgers plays. Every game, they're like, let's try to get 49 points. We want 7 touchdowns, and they're all going to be however the heck we want it to be. Trick plays, it's going to be bombs, it's going to be short passes, it's going to be running the ball, it's going to be screens. But the Seahawks, we play a really conservative brand of football, and we just ran into a buzzsaw on Saturday. We ran into a team that played us how we wanted to play them. They took the ball off of us twice, and they ran the ball with Cam Akers down our throats, right down the middle, and we couldn't stop their zone blocking scheme. We couldn't stop them, and we had a practice squad player in the middle, number 65. I don't even know his name. That should have been Snacks Harrison right there. Should have been Poona Ford right there. Should have been Jaron Reed, but they weren't there, and so they bled the clock, which has our offense sitting there getting cold, not being on the field, and that's a perfect way to beat the Seahawks is by using our own formula against us. So that's why I was so bummed on Saturday. And like Nick said, though, we still had a chance to win. So that's the positive. The positive is like we're not that far away. We need 1 to 5 new offensive linemen. We need to draft a running back, and we're in good shape after that, honestly.
And the thing I want to add there about the running back you just said there is that this is why I wish you guys had a first. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at this guy coming out of Alabama. His name is Najee Harris. I mean, I think of this guy, and I would love to see the Chiefs take this guy. The problem is, though, is that we just took a runner last year, and then and now he's on injury right now. And I'm hoping and praying he comes back this week because I think we desperately may need him. But the thing is that I think that when you're talking about a running game, especially, I mean, I think there's a difference in games, especially when you see teams just like usually play with the run and then just like basically be successful in it, and then just don't try, or they actually are successful in it and then they end up just getting stopped. I think that when we saw on Saturday, especially with is that when you get into the running game, especially with Carson, I've seen this many times throughout the year, is that when you're looking at him and when you just get him going, I'm not talking like you don't need to just honestly. You can mix things up. You don't need to run it every single play. But the thing is that you just need to just give him a chance. Just give him like maybe run on first down, even run it second down if you want to. But just don't not give him a chance because you just doubt him. That's just the main problem I think I've had, and I've seen many instances.
There was one drive that I think got Schottenheimer fired. 3 straight pass plays when we were in the game, and we just went 3 and out, and we took maybe 12 seconds off the clock or something. I'm over exaggerating, but the point is well taken, Lewis. It was a pretty brutal way to spend Chris Carson's contract year, is to not use him very much. He had his foot injury, and then again to not use him very much. It's like, what's the point, y'all? He's super motivated, right? He has off season to take care of his foot. He's okay, it's nothing super duper major. And the fact that we couldn't pound the ball is ridiculous.
That is right. And I just think that also, and I think that if you're just looking at, especially on the injury side, like, yes, it was his foot, but the thing is that, like, I think that especially the one thing you do not want to see, and I think that he should have been able to use more. You do not want like an ACL type of injury. That's just those kind of injuries, like, you just need to be more careful of. And I think that what they need to learn from this is a call for get this offensive coordinator in here and actually learn how to actually run the offense the way you want to run it, and then actually balance attack, even run it even more if you want to. And I highly recommend you guys do that. And then especially just get back in the game the way you guys want to get back in the game, which is running the ball effectively.
Yep.
I think this is the thing you have to do, because I think we are all used to winning the game on the 1 yard line in the fourth quarter, and I'm more cool with that than having a shootout every week and having Wilson throw 4 TDs and 5 picks. And I think sometimes games like that turn a little boring, but because it's enough to tune in for the fourth quarter. But I think the OC, the new one, has to run the ball more effectively, but in the same way be more flexible with the pass, because like the Seahawks are running, it seems to me, like 20 different pass plays, and that's it. And I think they have to get more flexible with the ball in the air. And if it's only in the fourth quarter, that's cool to me, but I need to get another ring. And I don't care which way. Run the ball. Right. I don't know. Throw it. Score only with the defense. Win each game 3-0. I'm cool with it. And I think this is what you have to do.
Let's hear from some of our other fans that are waiting here. Let's get BJ. BJ's been quietly just sitting there in the corner there. BJ.
I just want to say goodbye.
Oh, Nick. All right. Well, thank you from joining us all the way from Germany.
I need to go to bed. It's like 11 p.m.
All right. Well, thanks for your thoughts. You had some great observations. I appreciate it, man. Hopefully next year. All right. Let's go to BJ. He's in the top right corner there. BJ, you've been so quiet and patient. What you got, man? What's your feeling about the Seahawks and all this that we've been talking about?
Yeah. Well, if we're going to go after an offensive coordinator who is going to be wanting to run the ball more, we have to decide, do we want to get Carson or take the risk and draft a rookie running back? Because Carson's in a contract year, and then you have Shaquille Griffin, who's also in a contract year, and you have to make a decision between those two players because they're going to want their money, like we would want to. So we have to decide if we want to, maybe take Trey Sermon in the draft or Najee Harris, two really good running backs, but then, you don't know how they're going to play in the NFL level because, they're unproven. On the other side, Carson, he's proven. He's been 1,000-yard rusher before, and, he knows our offense more than those running backs. But then if you look at our secondary, it's horrible at times. It looks like we can't cover anyone at times. So we have to see, do we want to risk not signing Shaquille Griffin and have our secondary practically be the worst in the league, because
right.
I think that he's our only really good corner, and sign our more proven running back, and then hopefully he's good.
The challenge to that, and sadly, I feel like Chris Carson's time is done here unless they pull off some kind of a miracle. But given the way it ended, the fact that they didn't extend him when they had the opportunity to, and the fact that Chris Carson unfollowed Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, on social media, not a good sign. But you never know. Money talks. But the unfortunate thing about the money situation is that it's always a juggling act with the salary cap. But unfortunately, for next year, because of the COVID season we had this year, the salary cap is actually going down instead of going up. Usually it goes up by several $1 million, so you have that counted on extra room that you didn't have the previous year. Well, they're going to have to go the opposite. We have a less budget to play with. So throw all those things into the mix where you already got the Russell Wilson. You got to decide about Shaquille Griffin. You've got the Jamal Adams. Granted, we have him through to next year, but to make it worth what we gave up for him, we got to figure out how we're going to keep him long term. If we're going to keep him long term, I think they will, but that's going to be a lot of money. He wants to be the highest paid safety in the NFL. So when you start having the highest paid quarterback, highest paid safety, and then you got all these other guys, and you go, oh yeah, that's right, we still going to need an offensive line, don't we? That's the challenging puzzle, and that's what John Schneider and Pete Carroll are going to have to figure out through all this. And then Colby Jones in the Super Chat says, Ken Norton deserves some blame. We were top 10 in stopping the run and didn't adjust because it wasn't Goff. It was not like Goff was 22-30. So, yeah, we just said that the defense definitely had some issues there. But I think the way that the defense finished, he saved his job basically by turning it around. And unfortunately, Schottenheimer did the exact opposite. So, all good points, man. So let's go to NINJA-CRK, also known here as Campbell. Campbell, do you got some thoughts to add to this conversation about the Seahawks?
I think we look at Carson. Like, he is very good with as a running back, but like you're saying, he's okay. But what Russell wants to do is, West himself, he wants to go for some running, some passing. But for Seattle, what we want to do is we need to get passing in. We want to get some good receiving yards for DK, Rocket. But for him, I'm okay to see if he can do another season, but like you're saying, he is not like himself a little bit over the years. Like, he has been okay, but he needs to do better about him. Like, for Russell, like, the goal is since we want an offense coordinator, we have to do since the beginning of the season, what the NFL has been asking about Seattle is our defense. Our defense has been the worst, and for the offense, it's kind of like the same for the defense, because the defense is like that. For the offense, we just have to get a little better, and that's how we work at Russell and Cousins. Right.
Well, and we're going to need that. Hopefully, the new offensive coordinator we will have is going to make things gel. And we're going to have to. It's going to have to be a marriage between Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, and the offensive coordinator. They're going to have to get it figured out fast. Let's get Drew's comments here. Drew down the left corner there. What's your thoughts about the Seahawks and the season? Your chance to vent here or be optimistic or whatever you want to do. Here's your floor here.
Okay. Just adding to the Chris Carson thing, I do not think he's worth the money, especially due to the injury. He keeps having injuries that just keeps him out of being a dynamic player. And then when he isn't, he shows bright spots in some games. And then when there's big moments, you kind of lose track of Chris Carson. And I think that the running back position is one of the positions that you can replace pretty easily. I'm not saying they're not important, but, Chris Carson, probably a high-end, middle-of-the-road running back. You can find somebody like that in the draft if you look, or, we can just roll with Carlos Hyde. I think he's good enough. And I don't know. I think the biggest thing to me is not Chris Carson in that, but I'm just super concerned that Pete Carroll is going to hire the right offensive coordinator. What it makes it sound like to me is that they were they had differences in their schemes or whatever. And if Pete Carroll wants to run the ball more, he's like, we don't want to run the ball just better. We want to run the ball more. And then you have Brian Schottenheimer that is looking like if there are differences, then he probably wanted to pass the ball more. And I do think that just because Russell Wilson didn't play good in the second half of the year, doesn't mean that he can't. We should still let Russ cook, in my opinion. I think that's our biggest thing.
You know, it's interesting. I've heard that on a lot of people say, well, you know, running backs are easy to find. You know, we can just get them. But how long have we been looking for that guy to replace Marshawn Lynch? And we've gone through our share of Kristyn Michael. We've gone through, what's his name? Thomas Rawls. We went through, oh God, who was a big dude from Green Bay who was just horrible? Ate too many donuts. Eddie Lacy, my God. I mean, we finally got Chris Carson. And granted, we got Chris Carson in the 7th round, but I thought he was the next best thing that we had. And what just frustrates me is that we just never really maximized him. It's like, if you're going to go make running your identity, well, go do it. Maximize it. Go full on in.
Especially this year.
Yeah. So if it's going to not be Chris Carson next year, well, then Rashad Penny, he's going to have to step up. Because right now, Rashad Penny's looking like the CJ Procise of 2020 right now. And unless he can prove next year that he can stay on the field and be a guy to be counted on, right now he's 2 years of, we barely had half a season with him. And so, you know, he's got to step up. DJ Dallas, not crazy about what I've seen so far, but then again, they haven't fully committed. Carlos Hyde, he had a couple moments there, but we saw him in that end of the first half when they needed 1 yard, and granted, this is probably part of the offensive line's fault, but he got stonewalled when we needed a 3rd and 1 badly to keep a 2-minute drive alive, and they couldn't get it. Frustrated that they didn't give it to Carson there. So anyway, I'm just saying, I think it's easy to say it's easy to replace and just get a running back. But Seattle's track record has proven they have not gotten a good running back solid since Marshawn Lynch. So,
I agree.
Go ahead, guys.
I agree with that. I do think Chris Carson's a special player, but I just really don't think he's worth what we would be having to pay him this year, especially with so many of the gaps we need to fill. I'm not saying Chris Carson isn't good. I'm just saying, like,
well, how much would you pay him then? You said you wouldn't. You don't think he's that worth it. Well, there's a price for everybody.
Yeah,
that
I wouldn't pay him the top 10 running back personally, just based off of what else we need. I would not pay him the top 10 running back, and I think that's what he's probably what he wants personally. I think we could roll with another year of Rashad Penny, DJ Dallas, Carlos Hyde. I know that's not probably super attractive.
Yeah, but, so I hear you, Drew. I don't disagree with you. I think Carson's a pretty good player. I think that this year was not good for his ability to negotiate. I think that the Seahawks are going to do what they do with a lot of players, which is they're going to let them feel out the market. And if there's not a good market for them, they'll offer them under market value. John Schneider is a really good negotiator, for better or for worse. And I do think that there's other factors to consider, like the fact that right now we don't know who our offensive coordinator is. We may be interviewing some guys that are currently coaching playoff teams, or maybe we have some coaches from the college ranks that we're interviewing, or maybe a combination. We also, Chris Carson can't exactly go visit the Atlanta Falcons like immediately in person and do a physical. There's a lot of moving parts here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to see how the market is. If there's a low price tag on him, I think we'll offer him a deal. If not, we're going to let him walk, and we're going to roll the dice in the draft and with the guys that we already have. I have to say, though, I disagree with you on the Carlos Hyde situation. He just doesn't I think he's a good backup right now, but I don't think that he looks like a starting running back. I don't think he's particularly explosive. I like the guy and everything. I just don't see him as a guy I want to pay another $4.5 million to.
He's a good second option, but yeah, he's not lead running back material. And the question is, who's the lead guy? That we can
I'd rather pay Derrick Henry $20 million than any of these guys. But I don't. Yeah. Anyway, that's another discussion.
Let's get Killian Collins from Ireland, another viewer from Europe on the show here. So is it Killian?
Yeah. What's up, Norb?
Hey, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us from all the way across the other side of the planet. What you got, man? What's your thoughts on the Seahawks here?
Well, first, kind of forgive me for not being as kind of cultured about it as all of you are, obviously. But yeah, I suppose from kind of thinking well, we're off to a great start going 5-0 to a loss here and there, and then we ended up finishing 12-4. Obviously, you think, yeah, okay, here we go. We'll, like, on paper, we should have beaten the Rams realistically. And yeah, kind of thinking from going 12-4 to now, all of a sudden, everything's kind of thrown into uncertainty with losing the offensive coordinator, possibly losing Carson now, and on Facebook, kind of, people are here and there calling for Pete's head, like, so.
Well, you know, when you lose, everybody gets put under the microscope, and everybody's job is scrutinized, and nobody's really in a good spot. I think everybody's is in question. I just have a question for you. I'm just curious, in Ireland, how much is football watched there? I'm just curious, how did you become a Seahawks fan, given that you're in a country where probably, I'm sure football is not the number one sport watched on TV. How did you become a fan, and how is it that you're able to keep up with the Seahawks over there?
Well, for me, anyway, because my aunt lived in Seattle for 20 years, I think, and I think the first time I actually remember watching Seahawks was Super Bowl 40, I think, was it? Or when they lost to the Steelers, and I kind of, here, I'm not going to lie, I kind of just really picked it up after we won the Super Bowl. But yeah, I don't know, like, I think secretly there's a lot of people that love football over here. Like, obviously everyone kind of watches the Super Bowl because it's the Super Bowl, but
are you able to watch the games? How are you able to keep up with what the team is doing? Can you actually watch the games? Do you get on the internet, or do you just listen to my live streams? How do you keep up with the Seahawks? I'm sure it's not the team that's shown over there if they're showing any games.
Sky Sports usually, and then, or it's like kind of the European sports network, and they show Red Zone, and sometimes if we're playing like a primetime game, that'll be the main game and we can watch it then. So, but yeah, speaking of primetime games, especially me as a student, does, because I think, what is it, 9 o'clock kickoff in America, and then over here it's like 1 a.m. kickoff. So
right,
especially those heart attack games do not do me any good.
You got to really commit when you're going to be a Seahawks fan in Ireland. You're going to be like some all-nighters watching this team. That's pretty amazing. And just a quick reminder to everybody, if you're going to jump on the Zoom, make sure your camera's activated, because if you're not, then I'm just thinking you're not going to appear on camera. This is a visual show, so there you go. Vivek was asking to be on there, and I want to get his reactions too. So Vivek, welcome to the show. What you got? What's your thoughts?
Well,
chance to vent about the Seahawks here.
So what I'm thinking is that Dwayne Brown needs to so what I'm thinking is we need to if we ever sign Ethan Pokic, then we need to move him to a different position. And if we are able to restructure someone like Bobby Wagner or Russell Wilson, then I'm really thinking we can go after centers that can really help the offensive line, like Corey Linsley. I've noticed he's been a popular option in free agency, so that's one guy and he's been really good on the Packers, so that's one guy we want to test out. Another thing that I've noticed is there wasn't a lot of trick plays. Like, I've noticed that in the first play of scrimmage, Chris Carson is running up the middle, right? Leonard Floyd, or one of the linebackers, was lining up over there to try to stop him from attacking the inside, right?
Yep.
I was thinking maybe we could use that to our advantage, in things like flea flickers or something like that, just till it challenged the defense a bit more and stretch the field.
Well, and I think maybe not so much trick plays, but just creativity. You know, that's one thing I admire about the Rams and the 49ers. They have such unique, and the Chiefs for that matter, they come up with these just really interesting plays that are just not conventional, or there's a lot of misdirection and motion and this kind of stuff. And I feel like that's something Seattle could work into their thing. Just like when I was saying throughout the year when we were having a hard time getting pass rush, we were blitzing, but we weren't getting home a lot of the times. We just have our linebackers sitting there in the A gaps and just say, I'm coming. And then they come, and then they see it as there, and they just stop them, and we wouldn't get there. And then they started doing a few more things where they would drop them out, show blitz, drop out, and then, because that's what they were doing to us. They were confusing Russell and the line, and it caused a lot of those interceptions. So that's the creativity. Again, that's where I think it comes down to the coordinator. The coordinator's got to come up with these ways to just, a little bit of misdirection, confusion, a little razzle dazzle,
take the top off the defense or something. Yeah. I was surprised in the playoff game when we were down at least by 10 that we didn't run a fake punt. I mean, at a certain point, you eventually have to try, a John Ryan type fake punt, pass the ball to your corner that's playing the gunner position on special teams. We didn't have a single special teams trick play this year, which I was a little surprised at, especially when there's a couple games where we could have attempted it. I don't think any of us would have been upset if we tried that down, 13 points in the fourth quarter in a playoff game. It's like, again, eventually you have to try. As much as I love our punter, so definitely agree with you there, bud. Also, I did see in the chat Sky High Aviation Jose talking about we missing Max Unger. I will say that was, John Schneider's had a lot of amazing deals, a lot of amazing finds in the draft, but that was probably the biggest gaffe. I will say, more than draft busts or anything like that. Anyone can have a draft bust, but giving up your captain, Pro Bowl center, in front of Russell Wilson from Oregon for Jimmy Graham, that was brutal.
Yeah.
Very brutal.
Yeah, for sure.
Just wanted to lament that for a second.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, and yet there's a few things that have happened since a few years ago that just kind of stick with you for a long time. Super Bowl 49, that Max Unger trade. Some things are just if I could take that one back, who knows how things would have changed. All right, a couple more people we added in here. Let's see, before my Zoom's about to run out again, but we'll reset that if we have to. Family, new to the conversation here. Family, are you connected? Can we hear you? Can you hear us?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what's your thoughts? Chance for you to talk. Get your thoughts in here about the Seahawks and where we're going.
Let me see. Where do I start? Well, basically throughout the season, I think their defense could have stepped up a little bit with those messed up plays, I guess you could say. But overall, their defense was kind of rough throughout a couple games on the season. But their defense should have stepped up on those couple messed up plays.
And mainly is just the defense didn't show up in the playoff game, the one game that you can't afford not to show up, and where you have pretty much a one-dimensional team that's just going to run the ball in the Rams, where they have one quarterback knocked out with a bad neck, another one with a surgically repaired hand who could barely throw the ball, and yet the one thing that they were good at all year and the one thing that the Rams could only do is the one thing we couldn't stop. And Cam Akers ran for like 150 yards or something like that, which it was terrible. And then we couldn't answer. And it felt like as soon as we got 2 scores behind, it felt like down that day, it's like, man, it might as well be 21. It might as well be 24, because it just felt like we weren't going to come back from anything because nothing was working. And that was probably the most frustrating thing, that normally you feel like the Seahawks are always in a game. You always feel like, they can come back. They can score 2. In that game, it just felt like, man, I don't know. This is just...
So
maybe they did need that. Maybe that's where a trick play could have woken things up.
Yeah, so part of that was the feeling of...
Hold on a second. Let's get you back here for one last time. Sorry, guys. Let's reset this thing. Daniel, you'll get the next word once I get this back in here. Hang on a second. Again, we're talking. This is the Seahawks fan panel, taking you guys and getting your responses, your thoughts, making this your show, your chance to weigh in on the Seahawks and what they need to do and what. I don't know, whatever's on your mind, just things that you feel like you'd like to see happen in the offseason, and whatever else is on your mind. But Daniel, let's get you back on here. Daniel, sorry, I cut you off in there. Dan, you were about to say something profound,
you're good.
I think.
I was just saying, part of the not believing, for me at least, or like the hopelessness of that game was the fact that we kept having penalties. Because again, the comeback is predicated on continuing to do the right thing for a long time. And it's really sad and hard when it's like, we have a false start here, we have an offsides or whatever, or we have some illegal man downfield. I hate that penalty so much when you have a random offensive lineman too far down the field. I'm like, I don't understand football enough to understand why that's a big deal. Maybe it's because the defender has to take him into account or something. But I'm like, man, why can't offensive linemen run a couple yards down the line?
I know. We had, and when it came to the penalties in that game, man, they came in just droves. It was just like one, and then another, and then another. And that almost led to us getting a safety where you were sacked at the 2-yard line. I mean, it was like first and 30 or first and 27. I mean, we just when we shot ourselves in the foot, we took a machine gun to our foot. We're like, not just gonna shoot ourselves once, we're gonna let's really shoot ourselves bad on this one. So it was frustrating in so many ways. But yeah, let's get to some other calls here. Aidan Pham, one of my NORBFAM members, man. Let's get your thoughts here on the Seahawks. What do you think about the state of the Hawks right now?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of fix in the offseason for the Seahawks. But I think one thing that's important to note is this season, as bad as it ended, it wasn't like down the drain like we all think it was or seemed like. We did get off to a 5-0 start, which was good. Offensively, they did score a lot of points, which is also good. And then I think one of my favorite things that happened this season is the development of the defense throughout the season, especially from the beginning where they were like almost last. And then towards the end of the season where they started to rise above in the ranks. So yeah. And I also, as much as I love Chris Carson, I don't think he's going to return with the Seahawks.
I don't either.
I did check Norb. He did unfollow the Seahawks. But yeah, I would like to have him back, but I think the Seahawks, the best route for them is to go draft a running back in the draft.
And we've done so well at that. We got Rashad Penny, DJ Dallas, and are these the saviors? CJ Proside, are these the saviors? Are we going to be, and that brings up a whole other thing. The Seahawks draft history. I made this point early on an earlier video saying that in some ways the draft and Pete Carroll and John Schneider is kind of like movies by M. Night Shyamalan. I don't know if you guys know his movies.
that was a good analogy. M.
Night Shyamalan, he had this the Sixth Sense back then. I think it was late '90s when he had that movie, and I think he's some great accolades, a twist no one ever saw coming. And then after that, he kind of kept doing the same thing, and he had some hits and some not so good ones, but it felt like he just kept riding because he had that movie. He got let off the hook that he'll just keep making more movies, whether he's still making good movies or not. And it feels a little bit like we give Schneider and Carroll so much credit for being great drafters because of how well they did in 2010, 11, 12, that even though they had some really terrible ones later on in the draft, we kind of forgive them for that because we just remember how great they were drafting in the earlier years. But they've not been good, especially on some of their higher draft picks that, had they drafted well in the first round, in the second round, we should have some guys who should be tearing it up. And a lot of these first round guys are not yet, So, and here's the year we don't even have a first round pick, so maybe that's not the worst thing. But I just had to throw that in there as well. Let's go with how about DK and Norb, our goats. let's hear from you, man. What's your thoughts on the Seahawks? Nope. Oh, he's gone. All right.
He said that his audio wasn't working.
Audio's not working. All right, let's go to Jonah. How about Jonah Strong? Jonah, let's hear your thoughts here.
Hey, how
are
you guys doing?
Doing all right, man. All things considered. A little bummed, but doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain, State of the Seahawks is different, though.
Yeah, for sure. But what do you think? What's your thoughts on what Seattle needs to do? Where's their number one problem?
Seattle has so much stuff that they need to do. So yesterday I was in the Discord, in the Norb chat. I was just absolutely venting on the Seahawks, and I'm going to do that here right now. unfortunately. Norb, I know that you guys in your roundtable are optimists, but I can't be here. I honestly think that this is not like very popular or anything, but Pete Carroll is about to ruin this franchise. You have a quarterback who is in his prime. Your quarterback, you let him cook at the beginning of the season. He was cooking great. And then he went against the number one defense in the whole league, the number one defense. And he didn't do too well in that game. He also went against the Bills. The Bills Mafia, they've had a great defense for years now. Like, you can't be expected to have a perfect game every single time. As soon as something went wrong, he shut it down and said, no, we're doing it my way. And this, like, I don't like it because Pete Carroll is always stuck. We want to play good defense. We want to run the football. But the problem is, Pete, is that you can't run the football when you don't have an offensive line. Mike Upati should not return next year. They need some person to fill in at left guard. Posick, to be honest, he impressed earlier in the season to me, but as soon as they started facing Aaron Donald and like if the Niners had Nick Bosa this year or something like that, and just he would be getting eaten up. Dwayne Brown, I have a feeling that once he retires, we're gonna hear that he had so many injuries that we never even heard of. Like that man is clearly fighting through something right now. And this franchise, remember, they have no first round pick for the next 2 years because they got one guy in Jamal Adams. Now Jamal Adams is a great playmaker, but Jamal Adams does not fit their defense. They are best when they rush 4 and play cover 2 over the middle, relying on their safeties with their speed, like Quandre Diggs, great safety. No one talks about Diggs, even though I believe Diggs was a Pro Bowler this year. But this organization, they have no first-round pick, which I heard Coach Marsh say yesterday. I would be okay with them not having that because they stink at drafting in the first round. But the reality is that so much of what they've done in the past has been off of having a first-round pick and trading back in the draft and doing all that stuff. So honestly, I don't like where the direction of this franchise is going. I feel like this is like Green Bay, how they wasted Aaron Rodgers' prime, and now they're kind of just like, now Green Bay is doing really well because they got him. They were evolved a team put around him. Russell Wilson is just being plugged into Pete Carroll's system, and they should be revolving around their best player and not just around Pete Carroll.
Jonah, you make some fantastic points, some really, really great points, particularly about nobody wants to waste Russell Wilson's prime, right? We definitely agree with you on that. Definitely, like, Diggs is underrated. Our defense is, deserves some credit. But I will say this, I mean, on a grand scheme of things, we got to look at where the Seahawks are on their trajectory. Last year, when did we get knocked out? We were a wild card team, right? And then we got knocked out by the Packers, right? This year, we made a step forward, 12-4, and division champions. I want to throw this out there for you. Like you mentioned the Packers, so let's talk about them for a second. Who's their starting running back?
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones is a beast, right? You know how many yards per attempt he has this year?
Some crazy amount or some little amount?
5.5 and over 1,100 yards. Their backup running back is Jamal Williams, who has like 4.2 yards per carry. The point is, if you really watch the great teams out there, they are basing it off of the running game. So, yeah, we can credit Matt LaFleur, but here's the thing that the Packers have that we don't, that we can fix this year. And again, I don't think it's the whole team. I think if we focus on these two areas, we'll be so much better. Number one is offensive line. I think that it's really hard to do so, but I think we can do it. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been touched all season. That dude hasn't been sacked very much. He's been feeling super refreshed all year for 2 reasons. Number one, he has the best offensive line in the league. I'm surprised that they're probably gonna be just fine without their starting left tackle. I do think that's a big blow that could come bite them in the butt later on. But for now, with their bye week and everything, they have some extra time to get their backup left tackle up to speed. But the fact that they have a beast of a running back, Aaron Jones, who's super young, who's super motivated, I think that that's opened up so much for Aaron Rodgers, not to mention that he has his version of DK Metcalf, right? He has Devontae Adams, and then he actually uses his tight end. So I will say, I don't think the Seahawks are that far off from the Packers. Our defense, you could argue, is better than them, but right now they're keeping Aaron Rodgers super clean. They have a great offensive line, great running game, and ours sucks. Honestly, if I'm being really real, like we had a very inconsistent running attack at best. And Russell Wilson, you could see it. He was looking at his feet. He was looking at Aaron Donald. He was looking at his offensive linemen's butts. Like, he was not looking downfield. He also wasn't helped out by our coaching staff. So, again, I agree with you on a lot of points. I just don't think we're that far off from being as the Packers are this year. Same thing goes for the Chiefs. Pretty much the exact same formula as far as best offensive line in the AFC plus a great running game.
Well, that's why, yeah, you guys both made some great points. I'm glad you brought up the Aaron Rodgers thing, because I think people kind of get overly in love with Aaron Rodgers and the deep ball and throwing to Davante Adams and all that, and they forget about the complementary running game that they have and the fact that their line is protecting them so well. And I think that's, again, that thing that we haven't had. And we've been talking about the offensive line for how many years now? I mean, I don't think there has been a year we didn't talk about how the Seahawks needed an offensive line.
Just after 2014, I think.
Yeah.
In 2013, when we won, we were the most penalized team in the whole league. Our offensive linemen were evil. Like, Breno Giacomini would like be under the pile, like smacking people and like getting penalties, like running out of bounds, beating people up, giving people concussions. Now we have the best of both worlds. You have people that have false starts and they get other penalties too. So
right.
We'll get there.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That's the hard part, though. Is you know, Dwayne Brown has been, granted he hasn't been perfect, but he's been the solid guy on the left side. Our left guard has been, awful. The center, really, I thought Posick had been, really, we had the best center in recent years since Max Unger with Britt. And then when he got injured, his time came to an end, and then Posick stepped up. And I thought he did a fairly good job. Obviously, if you were to look at just this playoff game, he did not. And then on the right side, Damian Lewis, they did try to upgrade in that position. Granted, he's a rookie. And then Brandon Shell, I thought also did well in the beginning. I think, again, part of that problem was we had so many injuries during the middle part of the year that they didn't play together. And then we finally were all excited. Hey, we got the starting line back together. And maybe that wasn't a great thing because they hadn't been playing all year. And then maybe it seemed like there was communication issues and all that. So it makes you wonder, if maybe they came together at the wrong time, or maybe they just, had they not been injured, perhaps it would have been a different story. But it is what it is now. And unfortunately, it's, again, one of those pieces that we need to address, and we don't have a lot of draft picks to do it. So, yeah, those are all good. But I think you are right to try to not be so doomsday about this, Jonah, in that the hope would be that, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to go back to the run game, because, as we said, I think any team that can run the ball, look, you have the Saints with Alvin Kamara. You've got the Browns running the ball. You've got the 49ers and the Rams, they run the ball. You got to run the ball. You've got to have that balance to it. And then it's just that other side of it where you've got to have some creativity on the offense and to be able to adjust, to things that have to happen. So, anyway, so hopefully there's hope in that we don't know who that offensive coordinator is, and maybe he'll be someone who'll come in here and give a little spark and do some things a little bit differently, Let's go to Cameron Hughes. You want to add anything to that conversation?
Yeah, I mostly agree with Jonah, but I think the overreaction over the offensive line is kind of unwarranted because the scheme that Brian Schottenheimer is running is pretty vanilla, and it's basically like 3 deep routes on play action, and expect Russ to run around and find someone open, and you can't expect the offensive line to block for 6 seconds every play. So,
yeah. Hey, real quick, I wanted to say Daniel Dovin, who's been a guest, great insight on the football side, but also he is my sponsor recently on board and through the rest of the season to the Super Bowl. Daniel Dovin of Dovin Real Estate. Again, please check him out. His link's in the description. If you're in the market for buying or selling a house, he's your man, and you can talk Seahawks all the way through. So check out Daniel Dovin, Dovin Real Estate. Great guy, great sports guy, great Seattle guy. Let's see. Yeah, we're almost to the time. It's 2:30. This is when I was going to wrap things up. Let's wrap things up here. I guess final word. You guys are on the screen. Boy, I guess let me just ask you this. Do you guys feel like when time comes here and Russell Wilson's contract is time to be renewed, are you guys still in that he is our guy? That Russell Wilson is the franchise quarterback for the Seahawks? Is there anybody who doesn't feel like he is? I'm just curious.
He'll be like, what, 34 at that time?
Think so.
Yeah. It depends on if he, like, I don't know how much, if he'll want like, what, 40 a year? He's getting 35 now. So, but I don't know. It depends on if Pete hasn't retired or not. I don't know if we've won a Super Bowl or if he's performed well, then yeah. But if nothing's changed and it's the same old, I'd try and rebuild the team, and with that extra cap space.
Okay, so you're not 100% sure on that. How about you? It sounds like you, Jonah, are all in on Russell Wilson. In fact, you need to make him the focal point. Is that what you're saying?
I think that they should make Russ the focal point, but I do not think that the Seattle Seahawks will let Russell Wilson will not let his contract expire, and the Seattle Seahawks won't let that either. Either Russell Wilson has had an extension by that point, or Russell Wilson is getting the heck out of here because he doesn't have any input in what they're saying. And the word on the street right now, like just about 20 minutes ago, is that Russell Wilson really wants input, like on the offensive coordinator. And we're seeing what's happening with Houston and Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson didn't have like any input on the GM or anything, and what's going to happen to him. Ultimately, I think he's going to get traded. So either Russell Wilson gets a contract extension, it's going to be like, I don't know, $40+ million, like Cameron said, or he's out of there.
How about you, Aidan? What's your thoughts?
I agree with Jonah. Russell Wilson actually has to have input on who the next offensive coordinator in Seattle will be. But based on should the Seahawks renew his contract when time comes, I do think they should, because Russell Wilson has proven that he is such a great football player, and I don't think Seattle will make the decision to let Russell Wilson go just because of what a key part of this team he plays.
And I hope so. I hope so. For sure, that's I'm still all in on Russell Wilson. Yeah, he may have had some slumps this year, kind of finished in a way that we don't typically see him finish, but I still think that he can be the guy. But we just got to get him some protection, get him the run game. He needs to have both, and we need to get him running again too. I don't know why he's not. I don't know whose decision it was to not let him run the ball. If it's his own decision or if it's a coordinator thing, but yeah, he's got to. He's got to do it. He's got to do more running. And I know he can. Yeah, he's a little thicker, he's a little heavier these days, but he's still our guy. And Zoe, I'm glad to see you in here. Zoe, who one of my biggest fans in the whole world. Zoe, glad to see you here, coming on the tail end of the show. I want to hear your thoughts on what you think about your Seahawks. It's been such a long time since we chatted, a whole season of football practically, and here we are at the end of the season. Zoe, what's your feeling about your Seahawks right now?
Yeah, that game sucked. But we watched it literally the whole time, and my mom was literally going crazy. And yeah, I also heard about the defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, whatever, but the game, I just hope we can do better next year because it sucked.
Yeah. Put simply, yeah, that's a good way to put it. It definitely sucked. The question, really is how do we fix it? How do we fix it? And I think that a lot of hope is being pinned on who the new offensive coordinator is going to be. And I would like to think Russell Wilson will be involved in that. I don't see how he can't be. And Doug Peterson, the former coach of the Eagles, has been thrown out there. I know we had a debate about that yesterday. I like a lot of the stuff that he could bring potentially as an offensive coordinator, because when he was with Philly and they had those years where they won the Super Bowl, I like the aggressive nature of it. They did a little bit of trickery, not conventional stuff. They did that, what was that Philly special play, which throw to the quarterback? I mean, I'd love to see a little bit more of that. And that's one thing about, as much as everybody wanted to run Darrell Bevell out of town because of Super Bowl 49, he had some pretty creative stuff that we haven't seen. And that's what And while it's typically not in the Pete Carroll's pretty traditional and very conservative, but things like the flea flicker. If we did do a play where, Baldwin threw a pass to Russell Wilson for a touchdown against Philadelphia, in fact, a few years ago. Just stuff like that. We actually really have no any kind of creativity stuff like that I would love to see brought in. And I think a coordinator like Doug Peterson could possibly do that. So we'll see. We'll see who gets back in here on this. But I do want to get Chef Jack Attack. He's not on the Zoom, but I'm going to get his audio in here. Jack, you there? Hey, Jack. Chef Jack. Can you hear me? No? All right, I guess we have a connection issue here. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up, you guys. Or is Jack there now?
Can you hear me?
Oh, wait, there he is. There he is at the last second. Okay.
Sorry. I was trying to get on the Zoom.
I know. I want to see your face on here, but that's okay. We will hear your voice. That's enough energy by itself. So
Yes.
I guess I'm going to give you the last word here, man. So give me your thoughts here. I know you have at least one or two of them about the Seahawks and their situation where we're at right now.
Now listen, we got to make changes. That's really all I have to say. We have to make changes. Because we might have a good team on roster, but guess what? It's not working. Here, I'm going to give an example right now, okay? The New York Yankees, a baseball team. I know it's baseball, it's not football, but it's a baseball team. New York Yankees. They have the most championships of any team, of all time. They have a great roster right now. An unbelievable roster. And guess what? They have not won a championship in over a decade, and they arguably have the best roster in Northern American sports history right now. True, they have such a good roster, and they cannot make it that far. So that's just the thing. They have to make changes because guess what? It's not working, and it's Seahawks. It's not working. We have a good roster. It's not working. It's not working, Lord.
That's what it comes down to. You got to have the talent. Enough talent. It doesn't have to be the best talent because the thing about the Yankees, they buy the best talent. They got so much money to spend in there. The baseball is just a little bit different from the salary cap world of football. But they do have. They haven't bought every single championship that's out there because, like you said, I had forgotten about how many years it's been since they won a championship. But everybody loves to hate on the Yankees. But that's Seahawks, same kind of thing. It's like what gets them over the top because clearly right now we keep hitting the hump and then we can't get over it. And it's been that way for 6 years since we got to the Super Bowl. So hopefully the new offensive coordinator can spark some life into it. But I agree. I feel like we've got besides the offensive line, I feel like we do have a lot of good talent. They just got to use it a little bit better.
They do, and guess what? You know what that comes down to? Coaching, not Russell. Like I said, Russell has maybe a little bit of those ingredients, but he needs the full ingredients. Remember, to let Russ cook, you need the pot, you need the stovetop, you need the ingredients. He's got half of the ingredients. He just needs coaching. Okay, I have a crazy stat for you. So,
by the way, people are asking, who is this kid? This is Chef Jack Attack. He's got a YouTube channel, and he is a 12-year-old cook who's eventually going to be a master chef somewhere. So that's why all the cooking analogies go regular on the show. But go ahead. What's your stat you want to bring up?
This is actually a really crazy stat, and it's so Russell Wilson, even this year, and I would say the last 10 years. Do you know he's the number one quarterback to not throw that many passes in the first quarter? So what I'm trying to say is that he does not throw, this season he did a lot, but every other season, this comes down to the coaching, ready? He has not throwing any passes in the first quarter. He's the number one ranked quarterback to not throw that many passes in the first quarter. And second was Jacksonville. So they're Jacksonville. We're right next to Jacksonville when it comes to passing in the first quarter. That cannot happen. We threw it a lot with Russell Wilson, and it helped in the first couple of games of the season. But what I'm trying to say is it comes down to coaching. We need that consistently because not last year, but the year before that, we did not throw the ball at all in the first quarter. We were battling with Jacksonville to see who can throw the most passes. That is unacceptable. That comes down to coaching. Not Russell, not Chris Carson, not DK, not Tyler, not anybody. That comes down to coaching. Coaching.
Yeah. Well, and
we need coaching.
The thing, too, is that it's not just also about throwing the ball number of attempts. It's also the kind of passes that we throw. And what's driven me crazy for the longest time is why we don't follow the same formula that the Rams and the 49ers do, which is the short passing game. The short, throw the ball for 5 yards, get 6 or 7. You know, just instead of trying to get 10 or 15, you know, throw it to, you know, the intermediate routes instead of trying to go long. Yeah, it paid off a lot in the early when we were like 4th and 3, throw the bomb to Metcalf. But sometimes you just got to get enough. You know, if you need 4, get 6, and that would keep the ball going. It's you know, less risky passes, less sacks likely.
I know.
So yeah, that's been one of those things.
The thing is, Norb, Russell Wilson is the best deep ball thrower in the game, right? He can't go deep every game that much. So
I gotta bring up. I just saw a tweet here from Greg Bell, one of the Seahawks insiders. It just said that Russell Wilson was not consulted when it came to firing Schottenheimer.
What does that mean? Like he was upset by it?
Well, I don't know. He said he made it very clear that he was not consulted or had part of the decision making when it came to firing Brian Schottenheimer. That's concerning. I'm surprised at that.
That is. Because the quarterback should be the number one for offense.
And we're seeing in Houston, Deshaun Watson, the disconnect there and the unhappiness that he's having with those organizations because he wasn't involved in the decision making when it came to management over there. And now to see this, that is very concerning.
Norb, I don't want to waste your time and stuff, but how do you get on this Zoom thing if you do another one of them?
The Zoom link is I know it's so late in the game. I put the Zoom link in the YouTube announcements in Discord, and you just click on it, and it brings you in here. I don't know why you couldn't get on it, but unfortunately, we're kind of at the end of the time here. So hopefully next time when we do this, we'll get the technology worked out.
Yes.
So anyway, it's always good to talk to you, my friend. Hey,
yes,
look, Zoe wearing the NorbCam merch. I love it. Thank you so much. It's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much and thank your parents for supporting me that way. All right. Well, we got to wrap things up, guys. I just want to say this was fun. I haven't done a fan panel like this in a while. I really tried to get as many of you guys as I could. I'm sorry I couldn't get everyone in here, but it was a blast. And this won't be the last time either. We got plenty to talk about. You know, obviously, there's a lot of unanswered questions, but we're going to talk about all that throughout the course of the off season, and I'm going to be playing a lot more Madden, giving you guys lots of entertainment. Even when we don't have any more Seahawks football, I will bring you some brand of Seahawks football that you can watch, and we'll have some fun with that. So, anyway, I want to thank you guys for being here. To everybody on the panel, everybody who super chatted, and everybody who's just here watching and enjoying the show. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell. And later today, I will be doing the drawing for the NorbCam football right here, baby. It's going to be, we're going to do it. It's going to have some fun in how we're going to reveal it. It's going to be pretty cool. But we're doing that at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So until then, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Hopefully I'll see you at 5, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and go Hawks.